Okay. Hello. Hello, YouTube and Facebook over here. And hello to TikTok over here. This could either be a brilliant idea or it's going to be an utter fail because I am streaming on three platforms simultaneously. Um, it's kind of funny in the YouTube and the Facebook stream, I look like a sick Victorian child. And then over here on the TikTok stream, I have color to my face. I look somewhat healthy. Um, so, yeah. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's having a wonderful Wednesday evening. Hey, Rachel. All right. Hello, hello. Good evening. Hello on YouTube. Yeah. If you're trickling in, like I mentioned, I'm streaming on Facebook and YouTube and TikTok. So, Facebook and YouTube are here. TikTok is over here. Hey, Rory on YouTube. Hey, Rochelle. Goodness, everyone is saying hello. Yeah, so if you're watching on TikTok and you want a different streaming experience, you can head on over to YouTube as well, or Facebook. Go to the spooky stuff. And yeah, and like I mentioned, going live on three different platforms at the same time is either going to be awesome or it's going to be a hot mess. So this is pretty much an open chat. Uh, I was mentioning to the TikTok live that usually, I put out a video every Wednesday evening. Uh, I didn't do one last week because um, life kind of got interesting. I can't say why it got interesting quite yet, but life got interesting. And I can't wait to tell you why it got interesting. I just can't tell you right now. So I actually didn't have time to record new content. And so last week was kind of a bust. And then this week, I just couldn't muster the energy. I could not muster the energy. And I mean, I have topics that I want to record, but making a YouTube video just was going to take a lot out of me. So, because, invisible illnesses and all that fun stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'll just go live. This is easier. Groovy, there's not really much of a difference between the three, although on Facebook and YouTube, you'll be able to see the comments that I am replying to because I'll show them off. Over here on TikTok, I will mention to the Facebook and YouTube stream, like, hey, this person on TikTok is saying, like, Groovy on TikTok is wondering if there's a difference between the three. It's all the same. It is all the same. So, oh, it's good. Oh, hey, Jenny. Love you too. Hey, Caitlin. Thank you. Caitlin on TikTok says she hopes I'm doing well. And yeah, so open chat tonight. Spooky chat. You can ask me anything kind of deal. I just kind of go in with no agenda just to see what happens. People tend to ask some really good questions. And yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. I have another interesting life thing happening this weekend that again I can't say because contracts. It's going to be a cool thing. It's going to be a cool thing once I can say. And if any of you are familiar with paranormal media and whatnot, you probably can get a hint of what it is. Rory Hoban says, have you had any paranormal encounters lately? That is a good question. So I I had some weird. I did have something in January at Hanover Tavern Paracon. I did have something a bit. Yeah, Nick knows. Nick says congrats. Nick knows because Nick has been in that world. If you know who Nick Simons is, if he knows, then you may know. I'm trying to indirectly tell some things. I don't know. Anyway, so lately, I mean, besides the regular riffraff of what happens around my apartment, that's kind of spooky sometimes. Nothing out of the ordinary. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I get some weird things happening in my apartment on a daily basis. Sometimes. Hi, Diana on Facebook. Diana's on Facebook. um, yeah, so I did an Estes method, not Estes. I did a Phasmovox session with my haunted doll Madison. Um, Someone else came through though, not the doll, not anyone attached to the doll. I mean, when you have a haunted item and you've been talking to that person attached to the haunted item for a while, like you know who it is. Like it's such a weird thing to describe. Like you start to build like rapport with your resident spirit, and so when something else comes through, it's like you immediately know, like, oh no, that's not them. So um someone else came through and they kept saying they were like by the front door, which would be right over there. I don't know if it was a someone passing through, because I do live in an apartment building, so there's a lot of people around. People come with their own energies and their own attachments, so it's a little tough. I didn't get anything like terribly negative from this thing, what person, whatever it was. Um, but it was interesting. But also, my apartment sits on some old land. I mean, all land is old, but this land served a purpose and had enslaved people, which wasn't fun, not good. So that was something I learned after I moved in. Also, let's see. Oh, thank you, Steph. Steph says, "Welcome to Nova," from a Nova native. Nick says, "How's the kitties?" The kitties are good. None of them are in here right now because my setup is a bit more complicated because, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I have like two cameras running. Mm, I didn't want to risk losing a stream. So Groovy on TikTok is asking, any tips on reconnecting with being open to spirits? Close that door in my teens and I can't get it back. Groovy, I'm actually going through something very similar right now. I am not the expert on opening up abilities. I would definitely recommend Rebecca the Ghost Guide for that. Um, I am working on opening up my own abilities. I don't know what the word is. Like, this isn't something I'm gonna like take to TV or charge for readings or anything like that. I just want to be more open and see if I can get more in tune with what is happening. But what I've been doing, so Rebecca the Ghost Guide mentioned something. She's doing theta beats. I think that's what it is. Hang on. Or I think it's kind of like binaural beats. Yeah, it's like a deep theta stasis, like something like that. Um, yeah, so she's doing something like that. I'm doing a lot of meditation before I know I'm going into like an investigation or a haunted location. Theta waves, theta waves. Thank you. Just your average dad. Thank you. I was like, uh, so I've just kind of been doing like meditation and visualization exercises to open myself up. Um, oh, I did have something weird happen lately. Rory, actually, I can go off of that. So I did go back to the Trivic clinic. Earlier in February, I went to, if any of you are familiar with the Trivic clinic, I wrote a book about it. It's actually my latest book that's out. You can get it on Amazon. And there was a team that invited me to come investigate with them. And so I went down and investigated with them. And some really interesting things happened. They believe that I really helped stir up some of the spirits there. I've also built a rapport with the spirits there too. So I was also trying to take a step back too, so that I wasn't like influencing the investigation because, yeah, I wrote a book, but I also don't want to like dictate what experiences people have. So I try to keep that open as much as possible. Um, and when they had a Phasmovox too. They turned on the Phasmovox, and immediately we all heard, "Hello, Alex." And we also heard, "Is she the writer?" And I'm like, yeah, I've been coming here for like 4 years, 4+ years. I think I'm more than a writer now, but mm. Anyway, Rochelle on YouTube says, when's the new book out and will you be on my show again? Of course, I'll be on your show again, Rochelle. So the new book, I'm hoping, my goal is to get it out before Troy Taylor's Haunted America. Ideally, I would like to have it out by Con Carolinas, which is the first weekend in June, so that I can, release it, have a release party at Con Carolinas. It's not that I'm running into blockers with the book. It's just It's a big project. It's a big project. So for those of you who aren't familiar, I am writing a book on the founding mothers of the paranormal. So the women in the paranormal field who were instrumental in creating the paranormal community as we know it today. I thought I was only going to have 10 women in this book. I thought it was just going to be 10. It's now 25 because I keep finding women who have made, significant contributions to the field. So I'm going back and forth between, do I want to include all 25 in one book, or do I want to split it? Do I want to do like maybe 13 in this book, and then do a volume 2 and do 13 more? I don't know. I'm trying to determine, because the chapters aren't going to be the same length. You know what I mean? Like the Catherine Crowe chapter is like 4,000 words right now. That's a lot. But then I have Ada Goodrich Freer, who's maybe 1,500 words. So I'm trying to determine, like, I guess after I have all the chapters written, I'm going to see how many words the book is. And then I would say if the book is maybe 100,000 words, I'll split it in half. But if it ends up being like 5,500 or 60K words, then maybe I'll keep it as one. Um, it's so like, this has turned into a beast. It has turned into a beast. And I originally thought I was going to have the book done this month so that I could put it out for International Women's Month. Nope, that did not happen. um, yeah, so world-renowned author. My goal is to be a New York Times bestseller. That's my goal. One day, become a New York Times bestseller. Sherry on YouTube, so glad to catch you live. I'm so glad that you are here too. Dixie Normus, no worries. I'm glad you made it. Sherry says, that's awesome. Well done research. A lot of it came from interviewing people who know more about these women than I do. And then it kind of turned into, hey, have you heard of this person? Or when I was looking up one woman and I was looking up like her research papers in parapsychology, there is a bigger female presence in parapsychology in the early days than ghost hunting. But I would be reading like a research paper from SPR, and I would see another woman's name and I'm like, oh, I should look up that woman and see what they did and who they are. And then it turned into, it turned into something more. Yeah. So Sherry, yeah. So Sherry wants to know if I'm including photos of the women too. As long, yes and no. For the women from the 19th century, yes. When it comes to the women who are 20th century and later, more than likely, no. Unless I would have to essentially buy the rights for photos. Like a photo of Lorraine Warren is going to cost, like, to publish it in a book is going to cost money. Same thing with like Rosemary Ellen Guiley or Linda Godfrey. Photos, so once we get into like later time periods, and more recent, photos are going to be a little trickier. So I'm trying to make contact with, those, like the ones who recently passed, make contact with their families to see if like, hey, can I have permission to use this photo? Or go on Shutterstock and see if I can buy a commercial license. It'll start to get tricky the more recent the women are. So my most recent addition in the book is Linda Godfrey. Because she just passed away like a couple months ago. So so hopefully my goal is, yes, to have photos of all the women, but it may turn out that the more recent women may not have a photo. But also on that note, we can Google. But definitely the earlier women, yes. Catherine Crowe is a little tricky because there's no actual photo of Catherine Crowe. Like there's a drawing. There's like a drawing, like an artist depiction of Catherine Crowe, and it's literally like 100 by 100 pixels. I may have to use AI to sharpen it up a bit. Yeah. So my goal is to have photos. So Newspaper clippings, it depends. So I learned so Sherry was asking about newspaper clippings. It depends on the publication and how recent the article is. I learned this with the Trivia Clinic book. There are some articles up to a certain period of time that are okay to use. I think the threshold, if I remember correctly, is 70 years. Um, Unfortunately, again, with the more recent editions, because the newspapers also got permission to use those photos. So there's copyright laws and everything that I have to work around to see, is it worth it? Like, am I going to have to pay like 400 bucks to publish Lorraine Warren's photo in my book? If it's going to cost 400 bucks, this is a self-published project. Um, I may not. I may not have a photo. But again, I feel like with the more recent ones that might be okay, but I'll explain in the introduction too, just to kind of explain myself. Um, just your average dad says, rest in peace, Rosemary. She was aces. Yeah, she was amazing. She wrote so many books. Rochelle, oh, thank you. I'm hoping New York Times bestseller, USA Today. I really want that so bad. Um, it's a goal. Spooky Appalachia on YouTube says hello. Groovy, thank you for saying that's so cool. Yeah, and I have beta readers for the book now, so I'm excited for that. I'm hoping I can send them something in maybe in May. May. Or I just hustle in March and get everything. It's the sitting down and just writing it out. And then, of course, the imposter syndrome in me starts with the writing, because I'm like, I'm just regurgitating what these books are saying and citing my sources. I'm not doing anything significant. So, imposter syndrome is a thing. And a lot of people are looking forward to this book. So I think the pressure is kind of on because I want to make sure I do these women right, and I capture them, respectfully and all that good stuff. Sherry says, I love that you're focusing on the females. Yeah, you know, the paranormal history is very female dense. But we don't hear about them. I mean, Catherine Crowe is starting to get some more traction. Myself and other paranormal investigators, we credit Catherine Crowe as being the first ghost hunter, meaning like she was the first one to actually do what we would consider a modern day paranormal investigation. So Catherine Crowe did use the scientific method. She debunked, she logged everything, she interviewed witnesses. Like she did what we would consider a paranormal investigation. I know some people are going to say that Athena Doris was like the first one, and that's the guy who um, who rented the house in Athens, stay because he had heard it was haunted, stayed up all night, the apparition came to him, all that stuff. I guess we could consider him a ghost hunter in a sense as well, but what Catherine Crowe did was very unique. And she laid down the foundation for the Society of Psychical Research. I mean, she laid down that foundation. So yeah, from a snowflake to a snowfall to a blizzard. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened with this book. I thought it was going to be a coffee table book, maybe 20,000 words and just kind of be an introduction to these women. And then it's turning into something much bigger. So it's a good problem to have. Spooky Appalachia says, I never thought about that, but you're right. So, yeah. So, I mean, and by all means, I'm not trying to erase any legacy that was laid down by men. I mean, Frederick Myers from SPR, he helped a lot of women in the parapsychology field. So he's definitely mentioned quite a few times. There is one woman in the book, though. It's alleged that she and Frederick Myers are having an affair. So I'm actually been learning a lot of 19th century tea writing this book too, and how small that world was. Everybody knew each other, or they connected with each other, or collaborated, or like say Catherine Crowe's work ended up inspiring someone later down the line, like in the early 1900s, which is really cool. It's really cool when you see, you know, the fruition of these women, the work of these women. It's amazing. So yeah, I'm glad. I mean, I'm glad to write it. Um, oh, thanks, Sherry and Rochelle. Y'all are too kind. I can't talk today. Hey, Chris, on TikTok. If you're just now joining, I'm on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've actually been debating. I have the cover being designed right now. The person who wrote the forward for the book just sent it to me, and she did a great job writing the forward, made me cry a little bit. I was like, oh, this is really good. And actually, writing the conclusion made me cry as well. And of course, being the musical theater person that I am, I quoted Hamilton in the conclusion because if any of you are familiar with Hamilton the musical, the finale piece is called "Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story." And I went into this whole thing of like telling the stories of these women and carrying on their legacy and blah blah blah. Cue Alex crying while she's writing. So, um, yeah, for good times, good times. So I'm hoping to finish the book this month. I have a goal. I'm like, this month, at the very least, get the messy rough draft out. Get the messy rough draft out, and then let my editor do what she needs to do with it. Finish citing my sources because citing sources is important. Um, and then let the beta readers go at it. And I hope they rip it apart because they need to. Um, and then hopefully by June, at least at the very least by Haunted America, I hope that the book will be out. So we'll see. But if not, I'm also trying to be gentle on myself and say if it has to be July, if it has to be August, or even if it has to be the fall, it's okay too. I'm trying to be gentle on myself as well because with I was talking to a friend of mine. He's a parapsychologist. He actually got educated at University of Edinburgh in their parapsychology department, which is run by a woman. I was talking to him about it, and he was like, Alex, you can't rush research-based books because you have to make sure you have your sources together, and you have to have it vetted. And he's like, you don't. He's like, don't rush it. Don't rush it. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to rush it. So if it ends up having to be a Halloween release, I'm gonna but no later than fall, no later than the fall. So, hey, Kira. So, all right. Anyway. Oh, I did want to talk about I started watching a new paranormal show. It is on Hulu. It is called Repossessed. If you've been here a while, you know how I feel about paranormal TV. I'm not a fan of it. Like, I am a fan of it, but I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it because it's pushed too hard as true, but I enjoy it on the other side of it's entertaining. Like, it is entertaining. But with Repossessed, I've been digging it so far. One, the cast is very diverse. We have two women. There's two women and one male, and they're all people of color. The Yeah, that is the show with Mo. Yeah. So the whole cast, they're people of color. The woman, Lee, I think that's her name. She's the psychic medium. She's indigenous. And then Marika is, I believe, she is a person of color as well, but I don't want to label because I don't know and I don't want to make assumptions. But it's just really nice to see so much diversity in a TV show, in a paranormal show. Um, Oh, thanks, Sherry. Sherry commented on my shirt. This is actually a shirt I designed. It is in my Etsy shop. um, Spooky Cat Lady. If you go to my Etsy store, the spooky stuff, all one word, you'll be able to find it. I have some other cool paranormal shirts as well. But yeah, so just the fact that we have a cast that is actually women heavy. There's more women than men. Hey, psychic healer Stacy. Hey, Stacy. Um, and the entire cast is people of color. That's amazing. That's something we haven't seen in paranormal TV, really. That's something we don't see very often at all. So, um, and honestly, I've been enjoying it. There are some moments that I'm like, that's a little, um, No, I thought that was no, that's a little dramatic, but no, Repossess is a brand new show on Hulu. Um oh, thank you. Thank you, Henry. Um so Henry, fun fact, I have explored San Francisco. My father lives in San Francisco and I spent a lot of time in San Francisco. Lots and lots of time. So Alcatraz, that was a big one I went to a lot. I went there a lot, but haunted history with San Francisco, it's definitely fascinating. Yeah, thank you Henry for the tip donation. I don't know what YouTube calls it, but thank you so much. Just your average dad. I'll have to check the show out. I'm getting ready to head out to Ireland. I am so jealous. I want to go to Ireland so bad. Chris the Sham repossess. I have no idea if it's the move like reference for the movie, but so repossessed. Not just with the diverse cast, but it's like I don't know if y'all are familiar with the show Antiques Roadshow, where people bring in like their antiques and then people assess them and price them out or appraise them. So repossess is like that, but with haunted objects. They don't appraise them for a price, but they gauge like, is it haunted? Is this something that we need to take back? Is it something we can cleanse? It's really interesting, and some of the stories have actually been really heartbreaking. Which they've they've they get a lot of these objects come from periods of time where there was a lot of trauma like slavery. So yes, of course those stories are going to be heartbreaking. So um yeah, oh gosh, Kira, I think Kira is mentioning the movie Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen. Lord, that movie was bad. Maybe it's good that I haven't seen it. But yeah, so Repossessed is interesting. That was weird. I don't know if y'all heard that crash in my closet, but hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute. Okay. Um okay, that was weird. That was strange. There is nothing amiss in my closet. There is no kitty. I thought it was a kitty, but nope, kitty is sleeping. Madison? Hmm. That is interesting. Nothing's amiss. Hmm. That happens a lot these days. um, Interesting. Something going on in my apartment. So Steph says an awesome visit in the area is the Lorton Workhouse where Lucy Burns and other suffragettes were held. Had some interesting vibes and history. Ooh, I have not heard that one. Hmm. I'm a little unsettled with that sound. Yeah. Hmm. That happens a lot these days. So I don't know if it's Madison though. She's up there. She prefers to be on the top shelf so that she can oversee her kingdom. Oh gosh, Henry's asking me, do you think the Whaley House in San Diego is really haunted? So San Diego is my old stomping grounds. Grew up there, lived there until 2013, spent a lot of time there. I have a friend who was a docent at the Whaley House and she says it's haunted. I'll be honest, I have not had that. I haven't really had any experiences at the Whaley House when I was living in San Diego. Now, the land around it, I mean, because it's Old Town San Diego, it's like the oldest place, like settled area in California. Um, I had experienced some weird things around there, like negative vibes, aggressive vibes, but a lot of the haunted history with the Whaley House, a lot of it's fabricated. So I think So I think there's that. And like I said, I haven't had like a dramatic or terrifying experience at the Whaley House. So if it is haunted, I have not had an experience. I have not had an experience. Um, but I do know people who have, then people that I trust. So n- now there was one thing I did have there. I say that I haven't had an experience, not a terrifying experience, but oh god, this was years ago. So I was sitting outside of the Whaley House. I was getting ready to do like one of their tours, and this woman came up to me. Like I was sitting out on the porch. This woman came up to me and started talking, just really pleasant. She was dressed in period clothing, which again, not out of the ordinary for the docents at the Whaley House. So I'm sitting out there talking to this woman, and then the tour starts and I go in, and I actually ended up looking for that woman again because I was like, oh, this was a nice chat. It would like I'd like to say, thanks for the info you gave me. I couldn't find her. And according to the staff that I was talking to, this woman did not exist. So I was like, okay, who did I talk to? But I also don't know if that was a trick that they do either, but it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to, really determine that. I'm like, did I get played, or did I actually talk to like Mrs. Whaley or one of the kids? I'm not sure. So, and I went to the Whaley house often and I never saw this woman again. Because I only lived 5-10 minutes away from the Whaley house. If anyone's familiar with like the demographic of San Diego, I grew up in an area called Claremont, which is in San Diego. It's right off of Marina Boulevard and the 5 freeway. Get on Marina Boulevard, turn left from my house. 5-10 minutes later, you're in Old Town. Like that's depending how fast you drive. So I that was my stomping grounds, and the first like ghost hunt I ever did was in the El Campo Santo cemetery in in Old Town. Now that cemetery, I'm usually not one to be like cemeteries are haunted. Something's up with that cemetery. Now granted, in the El Campo Santo cemetery in Old Town, they did pave over bodies, when they were building like the sidewalks and the road for Old Town. Like they have gold spikes in the ground to mark where a grave what is. Um, and that's not the first time San Diego has done something shady like that with bodies and cemeteries. There's an area in San Diego called Pioneer Park. Um, it's the classic poltergeist scenario. So Pioneer Park, there's a playground, uh, there's grassy areas, there's trees, people have picnics, kids play at this park. It's a cemetery. They moved all the headstones to the side of the park, like to the chain link fence edge by the canyon. They moved all the headstones to one end, and they left the bodies where they are. So in the park, there's actually dips in the grass where, the where that land area is sinking. So this isn't the first time that the city of San Diego has done something shady like that with, cemeteries. Um, we actually used to do our meetups when I was doing paranormal meetups. We would do them at Pioneer Park. Um, as far as I know, though, I mean, Pioneer Park has always been really peaceful. I never had anything like really disturbing happen to me there. Sometimes I had the feeling of being watched, and yeah, so good times. Sherry, I'm gonna have to pick your brain because I live right on the edge of Alexandria and Arlington. So Potomac Yard is where I live. Um, Virginia has done it too. Unfortunately, if no one is buried in a private cemetery in 25 years. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I've been to a couple places around here locally. The grave of the female stranger. I've been there. I've been to Gadsby's Tavern. Um I keep meaning to go to Arlington National Cemetery, but they do have specific rules because that is like military government property. Um, So I don't, and plus just out of respect, I don't wanna make any content based on it, um, until I feel it out a little more at least, but, yeah, so it just kind of which is so it just kind of blows my mind how the dead were treated in San Diego and even Virginia. Because the crazy thing is when I lived in North Carolina, I lived in North Carolina for about 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. Um, there's like fences around like family plots in the middle of parking lots in like for the grocery store. One of the grocery stores I went to had like a little chain link fence around it in the middle of the parking lot. Um, because that was a family plot. Um, down the road from my apartment, there was a new housing development, and in between houses, again, a fence with a family plot from like the 1800s. So, oh snap! Ooh, I have to go to Woodbridge for that. Okay, so this comment from Steph says there are places where they have built around the graveyards. Potomac Mills Mall has a graveyard in the parking lot. I need to go check that out. I need to get around more. I need to get around this area more because there's a lot. Yeah, so that was something new for me when I moved to North Carolina and just seeing the random family plots around. Um, one of the places I made some content on a long time ago, photos. I found one of my friends does like the history segments in Raleigh, and she's like, if you see something old, if you see something old, there's probably some history tied to it. And I found out like there was this big, huge house near where I used to live, and there was a family plot there. And now it's like a metal scrap yard, but there's a little family plot on the side of the scrap yard. Um, oh, hi, Alana. I finally get to hear your podcast. Yeah. I'm glad people are making it. This is really cool. Even if it's just like a few people watching, I'm totally fine with that. Um, yeah, I need to get down to Potomac Mills. That's Woodbridge. Yeah, Woodbridge. So there's a lot of places to explore. I just need to get out and do it. So yeah, good times. Masonic Lodge in Alexandria. Ooh, okay. Very wild to visit. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So if you're just now joining, I'm doing a live stream, kind of like an Ask Me Anything type of evening. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, I didn't, if you're just now joining in, you didn't hear it. The last couple weeks have been a little crazy for me. A lot of life changes coming, not dramatic life changes, but life events happening that have kind of made it hard for me to make videos. So, and my YouTube channel, I usually premiere a new video every Wednesday night. I didn't put out a video last week because of life. And then tonight, I didn't have a video ready because of life. So I'm like, I'm just going to go live. I used to live on the Maryland side of the Potomac. I think most of the places I wanted to visit are gone. Oh no, I hope not. Goodness, there's a lot of people from the DC area watching. That's so cool. People who lived here. That's really neat. Um, yeah, I will take suggestions on places to visit. I still have the list from last time. I recommend the Torpedo Factory. They have a museum tucked in the corner from recent excavations from the river. Oh yeah, the Torpedo Factory. I know exactly where you're talking about. I know exactly where you're talking about. I need to go visit. I need to go visit that place. Um, I need to get more into downtown Alexandria. I did do a ghost tour there spring, almost a year ago. Yeah. But then I realized like the tour I went on, basically, I guess there's two routes for the tour. So I had to do the tour again so I can do the other route. So um Henry wants to know, Alex, what are your thoughts on time travel and teleportation? Do you think those already exist with some governments around the world hiding it from us? Um, that's hard for me to really determine and say. Maybe I'll put on my tinfoil hat for a minute. I feel like if we had that technology already, I feel like that someone would have gone rogue by now. I don't know. That's a tough one. Um, that's a tough one. I'm not sure. Although with all the recent events with like COVID and everything that happened starting in 2019, I felt like somebody would have I feel like by now someone would have come back to warn us or something. Um that's a hard one for me to say. I don't know for sure. Maybe. maybe. Um, do I think that technology, at least teleportation, could exist in like 50 years? Maybe. Maybe. It's a good question. Steph says, I did a ghost tour with my husband. At the end, we stumbled on the reenactment of George Washington's funeral. Had no idea that was happening. Oh, snap. So, the tour I went on, we went to the house of the doctor who tended to George Washington when George Washington was on his deathbed. Um, Visualize World Peace says, I like that username. On TikTok says, maybe they did warn us. Maybe this was the best outcome. Maybe. 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 Maybe this was the best outcome. Hmm. Hmm. That's a thought. That's a that's an interesting thought. Hmm. Interesting. Now you got me, Visualize World Peace. Now you got me wondering, like, maybe this was the best scenario. Huh. That's a head scratcher. Thank you. Thank you. I needed that this evening. Yeah, I got a couple tips on some haunted places in Alexandria from that ghost tour that I need to revisit because, content. I did do a video on the Burning Bride of Alexandria and also found out the true story. Um, that was a cool place. It's a gelato and coffee shop now. So I'm like, ice cream and ghosts? Sign me up. Hey, Carson. Carson on TikTok. Uh, yeah, interesting. Coffee and ghosts. I may have to go back there. It's right across the street from where I do the farmers market. When I was in DC, the Jefferson Memorial made me sick. Would not go back. Thomas Jefferson makes a lot of people sick. um, oh, so you were right in the tidal basin. Yeah. Um, I haven't encountered any place. Alana says Google is the best friend for me to look up Illinois haunted places. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of I've noticed when I've done Google searches around this area, a lot of the hauntings, big shock, are from like the 1700s. Huge shock. Um, huge shock there. I did like Gatsby's Tavern, and I'm hoping maybe I can establish some trust with them and maybe try to do something there. Thank you for hosting this and teaching. Gotta go, but grateful and hope to catch this again. Oh, thanks, Groovy, for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by. Yay. Cool. Um, Henry, you got the good questions coming in tonight. What are your thoughts on the Legend of Mothman? Okay, so I have a little bit of a personal tie with, not personal tie. Okay, so Point Pleasant, West Virginia is only about an hour and a half away from where my grandmother's family is. My grandfather was stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the 50s and 60s, early 60s. So Point Pleasant was close to where my family is, and so I'm very familiar with dynamics of like community reputations in that area. I also have a friend. Her name is Robin Pyatt Bellamy. She grew up in that area. She was born in Point Pleasant. For me, I believe that people saw something. I now, do we know what that is? I don't know. I don't think we do. I don't think we'll ever know. But I think the risk that it would have taken these people to come forward to share their story, to call the police and make the police report, they were risking their reputations. They were risking their roles in the community. They were risking their jobs and their livelihoods. So I think with all of that risk at play, I I think something was seen. Something weird did happen. Um, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the 37th parallel. I'm actually not sure if Point Pleasant would be near the 37th parallel. But that particular area, and I'll be honest, that area of the US is very weird. Um, my grandma's family's from that tri-state area between Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio. Literally at like multiple crossroads. Um, there's some weird stuff in those woods. Like I'll just say it's Appalachia. It's Appalachia. I think there's something weird going on there. Um, so Point Pleasant, that town's about the same size as where my grandmother was from. And with all of the reports coming through, and then Mary Hyre, who's also in the book I'm working on, her role in reporting all of the her reporting of the Mothman sightings, the UFO sightings, the Men in Black encounters, her reporting was a big reason why Point Pleasant really got on the map in the first place. So her reporting had a lot to do with it, but also the neighboring communities. Um, it's just there's just a lot of risk. There was just a lot of risk in coming forward, and if they made it up, I mean, that could have easily been found out. Jenny Diane says the 37th does run through. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was wondering if the 37th parallel ran through Point Pleasant, um, and what the 37th parallel is. I think it's y'all are gonna have to correct me. Actually, I got a computer right here. It's a latitude longitude line relation where the 37th line that runs this way, there's a lot of sightings associated with like cryptids, UFOs. I think there is paranormal related stuff as well. Um, Kind of like when people look at ley lines, that sort of thing. Thanks for following me, Holly. Hey. Oh, whoa, there's actually people here in the TikTok one. But that's a great question, Henry. Yeah, so for me, knowing the climate of that area, the social climate of that area, I feel like there would have been way too much at risk to just make it up. Um, yeah. Oh, Kira, you're a family too, right, Patterson? Nice. I did a video on YouTube a couple weeks ago, a month ago, about my grandfather's UFO sighting. He saw a flying saucer in, I think it was 1955. I had no idea. I had no idea until a historian, like a historical program coordinator, hey, Real Ghost Hunter One, um, was so this program coordinator from Fort Snelling contacted me and basically sent me this whole workup on my grandfather. And in that report was like, oh, apparently in 1955 he saw a flying saucer as cited in this book, and it was in a book. And I'm like, what? So, pictures and everything, like his handwriting, his statements, like my grandfather saw a UFO. I'm like, okay. Um, hey, Darren. Oh, thanks, Sherry. Yeah, that was one of my more sentiment. So Sherry says that was such a great video you put together. Thank you, Sherry. Um, that anytime I talk about my grandfather, I get very emotional because he was my hero. He was my father figure, and he was an awesome guy. Uh, I'm actually wanting to write a book about his life because his life is a lot. He did a lot of really cool things in his life. Um, but yeah, so knowing that he saw a flying saucer in the 50s, I don't know, it was just kind of nice to think like I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who had a weird experience. Um, and my first paranormal experience happened in Kentucky. So, yeah. Uh Francesco, so he saw basically it was a flying saucer that was emitting smoke. Um, I would have to pull up the report again. I made a YouTube video about it. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can actually watch the full thing. Um, Somebody had called in to like where he was working. I think he was working the overnight shift that night, and he was serving in the he was in the Air Force, but he was in the Army first. So trying to get my timelines together. Someone called and said, hey, I see this weird thing in the sky. He goes out and looks, and lo and behold, there's a weird thing in the sky. So he made a whole report on it. And then there was this guy that came along like 2 decades, 3 decades later, 4 decades later, actually, almost 4 decades. collecting all of these statements by military personnel who had seen UFOs, and my grandpa's statement made it into this book. So yeah. Sherry says, and the fact you didn't know made it so much more personal and unique for you. Yeah, it was really neat. There was a lot of things that we don't know about my grandfather that we're just now finding out. Like in the last like 6, 7 years, I've been finding a lot more out about his life. But the UFO thing, I like literally fell out of my chair. I was like, "What?" Like he saw what? So, but also my mom did tell me that my grandfather would always carry a camera with him in case if he ever saw a UFO or an alien, which I thought was interesting. My grandfather was an aeronautical engineer for the Air Force. Very smart man, critical thinking, analytically minded. He would not have just jumped on this like train of, tinfoil hat and oh, aliens. But even then, he never said in his statement that he saw an alien. He just said, I saw a flying saucer. Hey, crazy Uncle Chris. um, on TikTok. Uh, yeah. So it's just very interesting. Who would have thunk? Carson, I meant to address you. Yes, thank you for the cat shirt compliment. It's on my Etsy store if anyone's interested. I have a bunch of t-shirts for like paranormal people in my Etsy shop. So yeah, try to make the paranormal gear that I can't find for myself. So yeah. Let's see. We're at 8. Well, it's 8:51 Eastern right now. So this is last call for any questions, concerns, refunds, no refunds. Oh my goodness. I'm getting tagged in a whole bunch of stuff and I'm trying to figure out why on Facebook and I'm a little concerned. um Check my notifications because see what happens. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. No, that's not what I was looking at. Interesting. Hanging and listening. Cool. Yeah, I'm just hanging out at this point. Well, I like to stay online for like an hour if I can. At least an hour. So, Facebook is being a butt right now. Oh, this is why I'm not seeing my notifications. I need to switch. Anyway, yeah, yeah, Carson, yeah, thanks for stopping by. Um, these things are always fun. At least I try to make them fun. Why am I getting mentioned in a comment? Uh-oh. Oh. Someone I guess is calling themselves the paranormal princess. I mean, cool. Paranormal princess. I mean, sure. I don't know who that is. I'll have to check them out. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, Sorry, that was a total squirrel moment. Oh, real ghost hunter one. Thanks for sending confetti. And yeah, thanks. Oh, I got questions. Holy smack. Okay. Um, oh, Sherry, thank you so much. Thank you for the $10. Thank you. Gosh, you're too kind. Um, it's always fun when people send money. It helps pay the bills for the spooky stuff. Um, you know. So, which woman in your book have you found to be your biggest influence? Oh my gosh. Okay, hang on. I need to pull up my list. I have a list. Gosh, one of my oh, this is a hard one. Um, because every time I'm like, oh, this is the person. This is the person that I'm going to, find inspiration from. This is the woman. Then I meet another woman and I'm like, oh crap. I think my favorite one, well, okay. First it was Mary Hyre, then it was Alexandra David Neal, then it was Pamela Coleman Smith, then it was Helen Peters Nosworthy. Currently, it is Rose Mackenberg. Um, Crazy Uncle Chris. So it's Rose Mackenberg, and Rose Mackenberg was basically Harry Houdini's right hand woman. She was the master of disguise. So she was basically the one helping Houdini debunk these mediums, the fraudulent mediums. So she would dress up in like different types of disguises with um with like these pseudonyms that like would be like F Roud, like fraud. Like if you looked at it, it would spell out fraud. Um, and she would go to these mediums and get a reading, and then Houdini would invite them to come up on stage the next day and basically expose them. Um, because that's what Houdini did. But then after Houdini died, Rose Mackenberg took up his mission and his legacy and continued to work, to debunk mediums and do this investigation work. So right now she's kind of my influence right now. I feel like the amount of effort that she put in, she did also put herself in danger. Now there were a couple of male mediums that did assault her, or tried to assault her. Both happened, unfortunately. And of course, Houdini would drag them through the coals when that happened. But she risked a lot to maintain the integrity of like the field of spirit communication. So she's my current one. Oh, the other one, I got to reopen my tab. The other one, just because there's so many names, I have a list. The other one is actually Thelma Moss. Thelma Moss. So Thelma Moss was a Broadway actress who then pivoted into parapsychology. And Thelma Moss, I don't know if y'all remember the Carillion photography, in the X-Files intro, it's the hand with the glowing light around it. Thelma Moss was the one who was really responsible for bringing that to the US. It was originally Russian technology, and then she introduced it to the US. Because Thelma Moss did a lot of work in Russia and everything. So Thelma Moss is another one that I find very influential, especially since she made that pivot from like becoming a Broadway actress. Like she was one of the founders of the Actor Studio, and then she pivoted into parapsychology and ran the parapsychology department at UCLA. Like, how freaking cool is that? Um, yeah, she's amazing, and I can't wait for you all to meet her in this book. Darren, is there any place that creeped you out bad enough that you would not investigate again? No, not yet. If there was a close contender for that, it might be the orphanage in Gettysburg, but also I don't want to abandon those kids at the orphanage in Gettysburg, which is why I keep going back. So that's a tough one. It would take a lot for me to get creeped out to a point that I would never go back. So that's a good question, though. That's a great question. Cool. Cool. All right, trying to see if I have any more questions. Last call. We got about 2 minutes left. Thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Makes my Wednesday evening a little more interesting and entertaining. Yeah. Kira, thank you. Kira on YouTube is saying, very cool, can't wait for the book. Oh, Carson, tell your mom I said hi too. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I can't wait till the book is done, but I know that in order for it to be done, I have to write it. So working on it. Crazy Uncle Chris said we had a really racist ghost throwing a tantrum because there were two black guys in our group. That's always fun when the toxic ghosts expose themselves. Real Ghost Hunter 1 says, what do you say to those people who say we are just talking to demons? It depends how open-minded they are. I just tell them like that has not been my experience, and I've been doing this for well over a decade now, and I haven't been possessed, haven't been scratched. I've been touched, but I haven't, nothing like destructive has happened to me. So, and plus I've learned that what one person or what one group may call a god, some people may call demons. So that's something I've definitely learned. Um, oh, thanks, Rochelle. Thanks for coming in and hanging out, sharing. Oh, thank you. So proud of you. Oh, this was awesome. Thank you. This was indeed fun and exciting to hear about. Yes, thank you. Yeah, honestly, yep. There was a one time me and another investigator went through Central Park. There was an EVP that called him a white devil. Ooh. Wonder what they did to earn that title. Um, yeah, Real Ghost Hunter 1, that's a good one. That's I tell them that if it was true that all mediums are wrong, hard to believe. Crazy Uncle Chris says atheists never get possessed by demons. Interest that's true. I think so. That's true. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Hopefully, my goal is to have a video next week. We'll see how well that goes. I do have a thing this weekend. Again, I can't talk about what I'm doing this weekend because I'm under contract. I hope to be able to share it with you when I can. So, I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and I'll see you all later. All right. See y'all later, Spooky Crew.